4CRB now presents Legal Matters, proudly brought to you by Bell and Senior Lawyers. Call them today for all your legal needs on 07 55 32 8777. This program provides general legal information only. It's not personal legal advice. Everyone's situation is different, so please seek independent advice for your own circumstances.
Well, welcome to Legal Matters, and it's a very good morning to Andrew Bell from Bell and Senior Lawyers.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back again, Colin.
It's an absolute pleasure, mate. Well, there's been lots going on in the world, and also you've got some wonderful little... I won't call them the weird and wonderful stories, but they're the stories that come out of your practice and your experiences each week, so we might start there.
Yeah, well, we had a question this week about if someone dies or is murdered in a property, and what do you have to disclose? And we've already talked about disclosure and Form 2s that came in last year for real estate, where there's a whole bunch of things you have to disclose in Queensland. And apparently there's very strong opinions whether you do or don't have to disclose if someone died or was killed in a property that you're trying to sell. And so I've done the research, and I think part of the reason there's some confusion is there's difference in different states. So in New South Wales, yes, if someone has died in your house and you're trying to sell it in the last 5 years, there's a mandatory disclosure requirement. In Queensland, it's the opposite. You don't have to tell them anything.
So there you go. Yes, I do remember the distinction, but yes, I think it was a fairly public case of a doctor and his family being killed, and the law was changed, but we forget that it's state by state here in the country.
It is. But if someone asks you and you lie to them, then you could be out under our consumer laws.
Yes, get out of jail free card. So there you go. All right, well, the topic of the day is family law, trusts, control and family violence in property settlements. But before we dive into the substance of that, it is a talkback program. This is your show. And if you've got a question that you'd like to pose to Andrew Bell this morning, now is the time to find that telephone and dial 07 55 20 8888. Don't miss out on a little bit of free legal advice this morning. 07 55 20 8888. Now, we might go into a little bit of a quick recap of last week, Andrew, and then we'll kick off.
Absolutely. So last week we were talking about property settlements, and there were 4 elements that people had to know about that. The property pool, which is what everyone owns, whether it's real estate, super, shares, businesses, vehicles, etc. And it's valued at the date of the trial or settlement, not at the date of separation. So that lotto win that Colin's hoping for comes in, then that forms part of the property pool. Contributions are considered, so both financial and non-financial. And then since June last year, they're only looking at property that actually exists, not necessarily what's been frittered away by either party.
Okay, so that's a good foundation. And again, there has been some law changes in the past years. In fact, I think there's been a couple of amendments over time as we go through people here at the station who are going through the process. So it's interesting to see the travel and the differences that come through those changes. So, Andrew, let's move into what actually changed with family violence.
Okay, so I will start by saying family violence is a sensitive subject. If you or someone you know is a victim of family violence, that there are counselling services or to call the police. And we're not taking that lightly here today.
No, absolutely not.
But family violence is something that happens. It appears to be reported more commonly than it used to be, and therefore the government decided that family violence is something that should be taken into consideration in property settlements resulting from the end of a relationship. So in 2025, the definition of family violence in the Family Law Act was expanded. It now expressly includes economic or financial abuse as well as physical abuse. And it names dowry abuse, which is often something that happens in Indian-related cultures, as an example of what this might look like. It covers unlawfully depriving a family member of their liberty, preventing someone from maintaining connections with their own family, as things that need to be taken into account. So Section 79 looks that the court must consider if family violence has been raised when deciding how to divide property.
Okay, well, we've got our first caller. We will come back to the topic, and it is a very good morning to Margaret. Margaret, ask your question of Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. My question is, my solicitor is one of my executors in my will, and I would like to appoint someone else and take him off. Do I have to change my will to do that?
Absolutely, you do. If he's named or she is named as the executor specifically, then you do need to change your will either via a codicil or a new will. But our recommendation is to review your will every 3 to 4 years, and if that's the case, I'd create a new one and name a new executor.
Okay, thank you. It's a trust account, so I've got 2 trusts actually. So
okay, well, the trust. So, are you talking about a trustee of a trust as opposed to a will?
No, a trust.
Okay, so a trust has someone called an appointer who can look after who then appoints the trustee who looks after the trust. So if you're the appointer of the trust and it's not a testamentary trust, the trust exists now, you would be able to actually revoke who is the current trustee and appoint a new one under the terms of the trust. So I'd get someone to have a look at the trust deed and look at how you need to do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks for your program.
Thank you,
Bye.
Margaret. Good on you. Well, if you'd like to ask a question just like Margaret did, we are not pigeonholing your questions to the topic of the day. Any legal topic is on the table. So if you'd like to talk about family law, if you'd like to talk about wills and estates, conveyancing, Andrew will be happy to take your call this morning. 0755 20 8888 is the number. Now, just going back to what had actually changed, Andrew, the question I've got is there seems to be a lot of definitions. Look, physical violence is a very simple one. That's probably the one that first comes to mind when people talk about family violence. But financial violence, and forgive me if I've got the term wrong, I've seen the term legal violence where people have used the legal system to emotional violence, all of those sort of things.
Yeah, and if we tie that into coercive control as well, which is now a crime in Queensland.
And does that fall under family violence, or is it a completely separate thing?
No, all of these oppressive behaviours fall under family violence for the purposes of the Family Law Act.
Okay.
So essentially, someone doing conduct that stops the other person living a free and full life, effectively unlawfully, or using their superior size or economic might or other powers or social position to oppress the other person in the relationship, is what we're talking about here.
Okay, perfect. So that's a good definition, because realistically people go, okay, it's physical violence, but there's a lot more to it, and you can just see it as part of some of that coercive control, as you term it, where, someone's just continually peppering you with legal questions or legal documents and wasting time, effort and money and stressing you out.
Well, particularly the money one, it's not uncommon for a property settlement to happen, and someone then takes all the assets and puts them under their exclusive control, and the other person has no resources legally to fight back. And then even, it's a very difficult and expensive process to even claw some of that money back for your legal representation, or being able to leave the house, or being able to do lots of these other, choosing what you wear, choosing what you eat, all of these sorts of different bits and pieces constitute abuse. And the court needs to take that into account as of 2025.
Fantastic. All right, we have our second caller this morning. It is John. John, ask your question of Andrew.
Yes, good morning. My question is, I have 2 properties. I own a house in joint names with my wife, and I have a second house that is entirely in my name. With the second house, I'd like to leave it to one specific person. Is there any way I can guarantee that they will get it and not be contested by my wife or anyone else?
Sorry, John, so you said that other property is in your name only, is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, if you put it in joint names with this other person, then when you pass, then you would automatically pass to them. That's probably the most certain way that would transfer, but you're also then giving them an equal property right in the property now before you pass, which you can't revoke later, so you have to take that into account.
Is there any other way?
Well, there are trusts, there's all sorts of other ways. You could write it in your will, but it may be contestable depending on how you set it up. We did an episode 2 weeks ago where we went through all the various options and the pros and cons of each, if you wanted to look that up on the 4CRB or Bell Senior website. But yes.
When you get down to it, John, it really does come down to specific advice for your specific circumstances.
And it comes down to trust as well as the big thing. How secure are you financially, and how much do you trust the people that you're trying to give these things to?
I trust them completely.
Well,
and I'm financially well off.
Then potentially it would be worth putting it into as tenants in common with the other person's name on the property, and when you pass, it'll automatically revert to them, bypassing wills or anything else.
All right then. Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, an interesting question. We'll move on to another one, and it is George. George, ask your question of Andrew.
Yes. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, George.
My question is, my wife, the house that we're living in, we married, and the house is in my wife's name.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm thinking to go half with the wife, and I was wondering, do I have to pay stamp duty?
So why are you trying to do this? Just to make sure. Well, why are you doing this, George?
Just, for the sake of my kids, making sure that, they're going to inherit part of the house.
Okay, well, there is something where there is love and affection where some of the fees are bypassed, but I can't tell you 100% off the top of my head whether there's any stamp duty or other fees involved. I can do my research this week and let you know on the program next week, but I don't want to mislead you, and I can't tell you off the top of my head on that one.
Yeah, well, a few years ago, there was no stamp duty to be paid because we're partners and, husband and wife. But I don't know now what's happening. Do I have to pay stamp duty?
That's why I'm saying this is a rapidly changing thing, and this isn't a request that I've had to do recently, so I'm just not sure off the top of my head. So I'll get back to you next week.
So, George,
no problem. Okay.
If you listen in next week, we'll make that one of those homework questions at the front of the show.
And I'll probably update it on the website later in the week as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good on you, George. If you'd like to ask a question of Andrew Bell from Bell and Senior Lawyers, now is the time. 0755208888 is the number. 13 minutes left in the program. Head towards that phone right now and we'll listen to a message from our sponsor.
Wills, probate, powers of attorney or property matters are legal issues that can feel overwhelming. Don't put off dealing with them. Call our trusted sponsors, Bell and Senior Lawyers. They explain everything in plain English and guide you through every step of the way. For caring, experienced advice, phone 07 55 32 8777 or head to bellsenior.com.au today. Bell and Senior Lawyers, making legal matters simple.
All right, we're back, and we're back with Legal Matters and Andrew Bell from Bell and Senior Lawyers. This is your opportunity to have some free legal advice live on air this morning. 0755208888 is the number. We're talking... Sorry, Andrew, you go.
I was just going to say, during the break, I've looked it up on the Queensland Revenue Office website, and there is an exemption for stamp duty if you transfer an interest in your home to your spouse.
There you go. So doesn't go any further than that, Andrew. It's only your spouse.
There were two others. Land tax and vehicle registration duty also have a spousal exception.
There you go. Oh, well, it's nice to know. All right, well, hopefully that answers your question, George. And moving right along, we're talking family violence. Actually, we've got another caller, so we're going to move to John number 2. John number 2. Hello, John. Ask your question of Andrew this morning.
Andrew, tenants in common, would that be for, how about a super fund or a commercial investment where your wife's died and you want to put somebody else in place of it?
Sorry, can you be more specific in what you're asking, John?
Well, it's just came through my brain, Andrew. All right, a commercial property doesn't come into the same as a house in tenants in common, does it?
Well, it depends how it's owned. There isn't really a distinction between commercial and non-commercial property when it comes to the Titles Act. My
wife was, you can use the word tenants in common in my commercial property. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering whether she's dead now and I'm by myself, of course, and I brought somebody else in. Mm-hmm. I'll probably have to pay stamp duty on it, I suppose.
Probably do.
Would there be anything like that? Would I have to pay stamp duty to bring somebody in on a commercial property, or...
It's likely. I think you should seek advice, and it also depends whether you're doing tenants in common or if they've paid their share, and if you're doing joint tenants and they owned a named percentage. But that's something I'd be seeking commercial advice on.
Yeah, and the super fund would be... A super fund is your wife and yourself, Andrew. That's when your wife dies, that's it, and you've got it by yourself.
Well, a self-managed super fund or any super fund, the assets held in it are held in trust for the members, and if they die, you need a binding death nomination that determines for the trustee of that fund where things are going to go, and that does bypass your will.
Oh, fair enough. All right, thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. All right, moving right along, we've got another caller now, and it is Amanda. Amanda, ask your question of Andrew.
Good morning, Andrew. I have a rental property that the owner underneath reported a water leak coming from my unit, but he just let the body corporate know, and they went ahead and organised a plumber, and then they contacted my property manager, but they didn't contact me to ask if I wanted to use that plumber or go ahead with it. And now they've sent me the bill for the plumbing.
Yeah.
So am I required to pay that bill even though that they didn't advise me and contact me about that?
So it would depend on the rules for the body corporate, but typically there's an exemption where if there's something that's an emergency affecting properties, that either a property manager or the body corporate can call someone out. Plumbing leaks are typically considered an emergency because they're causing, particularly if they're causing damage to other people's property. So I would suspect that they were within their rights to call someone on that emergency basis and hold you liable for it.
Right, because I do know, I'm the treasurer, and I do know that they have paid in a similar circumstance for another unit, that they did pay the plumbing bill for another owner and didn't ask them.
Well, plumbing's also an interesting one because it depends on the actual pipes and where the pipes are located as to who's liable, whether it's the person above, the person whose walls they're in, or whether it's the building. So if they're common pipes for all of the get plumbing into all of the major places, then the body corporate's liable. If it's inside your own walls of yours for your own service, you're liable. If it's someone else's pipes in their walls for their unit and it affects you, well, that person is liable. So it all depends on a specific question of fact on whose pipes were leaking.
Yeah. This is the difficult thing with units and body corporates.
Indeed, and then there's different rules. But I really think that they would say that it was an emergency exemption. But you could look at the rules and check, and you can also write to the body corporate and ask on what basis did they do this and get them to justify it before you choose to pay.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Amanda.
Interesting question. Thank you, Amanda. All right, we have 6 minutes left in the program. Last calls 0755 208888. is the number. We'd love to hear from you this morning. A little bit of free legal advice is what's on offer. Now, the topic of the day is family law, trusts, control and family violence in property settlements. We really haven't had a chance to get into it this morning, but I'm going to pose the question that we've had a change in the Family Violence and Family Law Act. So it now affects directly property settlement and not just parenting. Is that correct?
That's correct. So if there is family violence, it was established by the court and then through this legislation where a course of violent conduct having a discernible adverse impact on a party's contribution can justify an adjustment. So if someone is the victim of family violence and they can prove it to the satisfaction of the court, and this is the civil, not the criminal standard, then, and for those who don't know, one's the beyond reasonable doubt, that's the criminal standard, meaning there's no other plausible explanation. Civil standard is effectively, is it more than 50%? They call it the balance of probabilities. So on the balance of probabilities, was there family violence that significantly impacted one party? If so, that can be taken into account for their contributions, which then washes out in the percentage for the distribution.
Well, that's very interesting. All right, we have another call. It is Karen. Good morning to you, Karen. Ask your question of Andrew.
Good morning, Andrew. A friend of mine passed away a while ago and has left me about $300,000. Okay. I would like to, and I'm on the pension. Mm-hmm. Can I give some of that away directly without it affecting anything?
So any gifts that you do above a certain threshold, which from memory is about $20,000, affects your pension assessment for the next 5 years. Yes. But I can't give you financial advice, so I would recommend that you actually speak to an accountant who can confirm the best way to give that away. And it may be putting it into a trust, and the trust may be able to use it for the benefit of others. There's a number of ways that you may be able to achieve this without affecting your pension liability.
Oh, excellent. All right. That was a simple one. Thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, couple of minutes left in the program. Probably time enough for one more phone call. 0755208888 is the number to call, and we'd love to hear from you this morning.
So, Colin, before we move on to other areas of family law, I don't think we have enough time, but
okay.
So I thought we'd start talking about a conversation we're having off air about changing the US Constitution.
Oh, yes, Donald Trump.
So it's timely and in the news. There's some proposals about changing the Constitution, and as I've told people before, I am actually registered as an attorney in New York. So
should we lay the foundation? Donald Trump famously said that he would be running for a fourth term in the last couple of days. That can't be done, can it, at this point?
Well, no. There is actually an amendment to the Constitution that came in after World War II in America that says that presidents are limited to 2 terms, which was the convention before Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected for his record 4th term.
Yeah, okay. So now let's go into the details.
So in America, they have a House of Representatives and a Senate, similar to us here in Australia, where there's individual. In the Capitol building, there's individual electorates for the House, and the Senate, there's 2 senators per state. They need a 2/3 vote of both the House of Representatives and the Senate before an amendment can be proposed. And then, after that, they need 2/3 of all the state legislatures to agree that they need a constitutional convention to agree to that. So every single parliament in every single state, they need 34 out of 50 before this can even hit the table. So this is why, since World War II, pretty much nothing's changed with the US Constitution. So
putting it in layman's terms, a very difficult needle to thread.
Yes, so we will watch with interest, but it feels unlikely to me.
The bit that I get is that he's running for a 4th term. He's claiming that he didn't lose that other election, but won it, so hence why he says that he's won 3. So it can be a little confusing, can't it?
It can be, but it just goes to show some of the crazy shenanigans that goes on aren't just limited to Australian politics.
All right, minute left in the program. I know we really didn't get to expose this topic today, but I thought I might open it up for a little summary.
Okay, well, essentially, if there's So we've on the property settlement, we had those 4 elements that we've talked about. What's in the property pool, who contributed, what are the future needs of the parties, and then also there's another factor if there was family violence, that if we're looking at a percentage split, that we're looking at what family violence happened, how did it affect the parties, and does someone need an adjustment accordingly.
Perfect. Well, we'll continue this discussion next week, Andrew. I'd like to thank you very much for your time this morning. Absolutely fantastic information. Not that we got to expose the entire topic, but we talked about Donald Trump, and we talked about whether you can sell you have to disclose whether someone's passed away in a property in Queensland when you're selling it. So there's some great little takeaways there. Thank you all very much who called in to the show. It is a wonderful show when you partake, and it was a great one this morning.
It was. Again, thank you for everyone for calling in, and we'll talk next week.
Andrew joins us next week on a Tuesday at 9 a.m. So save your questions till then, and we'd love to hear from you.
Okay.
You've been listening to Legal Matters, proudly brought to you by our trusted sponsor, Bell and Senior Lawyers. Call them today for all your legal needs on 07 55 32 8777. A copy of this and past programs and all relevant resources will be available for you to replay or download on bellsenior.com.au and 4crb.com.